How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to the Fantasy Assessment, the Season 2, Episode 8. This is, of course, your one-stop shop for all advice tailored to your roster specifically. I'm here, as always, with my two co-hosts, Chu and Jerry. Chu, how you doing today, my man?
Doing good. A little bit under the weather, but this will be my Jordan flu game, so I'm ready to rock.
I mean, you're always at that level, so we're in store for a great show tonight, folks. Jerry, how about you? We missed you last week, so glad to have you back.
Yeah, I was under the weather last week and glad to be back this time. Couldn't make it through last time.
Damn. So if everything lines up, I'll probably be out sick for our next show. But today's show, we're going back to our roots, everyone. We are analyzing perhaps our number one fan, big friend of the show, and a big part of the Going for Two community, Jamie's team, a team that came, got to the dance but couldn't get it over the line, finishing second. And we're gonna help think through some strategy. The rookie draft is yet to happen, which is honestly kind of a rarity. It seems on Twitter, all these drafts are kind of kicking off, even while day two is still going in some cases. But we're excited to break down his team. Before we get to that, of course, we have our segment of
Fight.
Choose Your Fighter. So, of course, that's where we have a weekly topic, we have a question, and we all choose our fighter to bring home the gold. Today's question, in honor of the recent release of the Scott Fishbowl scoring, is, and I want to make sure, okay, yeah, specifically, I wanted to ask about the return yards because I've never played in a return yards league, and of course, the big change to the kickoff rule. This is going to be an interesting watch for everyone. But with the return yard feature in particular, who are your names to watch? Jerry, I'll go to you first.
I'm going to go with none other than my boy from Buffalo, Khalil Shakir. He's going into his third year with the team. He has returned some punts and some kicks, and on the depth chart, according to our lads, he is the only kick returner for kick returns, and then he's behind another guy for punt returns. But he's done a little bit of everything. The risky part of that is, Shakir is probably going to be a guy that is drafted in a lot of leagues anyways, because he's projected to be the number one or number two receiver for Josh Allen, maybe number three target overall with Dalton Kincaid in there. But so like I'm going to personally be trying to target a guy that's going to be on the field a lot anyways. So I'm going to try to find guys like that. Like I think Hines was one. I forgot where he's playing now, but when I was going through the our lads list, I saw Hines on there. I saw Bucky Irving on there. So if he gets some time down there in Tampa, he might be another one. I don't want to take your guys away. Sorry about that. But Khalil Shakir really stuck out to me because he's done it. We've seen Hines do it too. And he's fast, and he could get you. You don't necessarily have to get a touchdown, although that would be a bonus. But the return yardage itself should be good enough too. And you're going to get, like I said, wide receiver 2 numbers from him as far as a wide receiver goes.
Yeah, I really like that shout. And just one more point on Shakir is, for his size especially, I feel like he's surprisingly adept at breaking tackles. He had that one huge touchdown run where I don't know how they didn't bring him down, but he got in anyway. Chu, who's your guy for the return yard boost?
Yeah, so like Jerry was saying, it is, it's intriguing. In the past, it's been the punt returners and kick returners. We've gotten away from having the bigger names do it, obviously with injury risk and that sort of thing. But now with the rules changing, and obviously with Scott Fishbowl, the scoring and everything, the guys that are maybe the depth guys but are still going to get some wide receiver work and be returners are tremendously valuable. And hopefully you can wait a little bit to get them. So there's one person that I really wanted to say, but I wanted to leave just in case either of you guys pick him. But the other guy I was looking at is Marvin Mims out in Denver. He is somebody who is he got a decent amount of return work last year, and I think as a rookie, that's pretty telling in terms of what they had there with Judy now leaving. I know my guy Troy Franklin is there, but it's a bit of a circus in that wide receiver room right now. I do assume Cortland Sutton is going to stay, but I think Mims is going to get enough work as a receiver. Maybe the second receiver in that offense. I'm still not even fully certain on that, but as a returner specifically, off of 15 returns, which that's tied for 11th last year. He had 397 yards. He did have a touchdown. He was one of the few that actually had a touchdown last year. And he was 9th in 20-plus yard returns and 6th with 1 in 40-plus yard returns. So I think about those guys that have that big boom possibility. I know, Jerry, like you were saying, like the speedier guys or even the shiftier guys or both as returners. So I think when you can get those guys that can get those chunk returns and have some level of floor in terms of, getting a couple targets here or there as receivers, that could be pay huge dividends in Scott Fishbowl this year.
Yeah, that's another great shout. And I think one that a lot of people, especially in the dynasty space, have high hopes for this year. I wonder if we were thinking of the same guy or both of you too, but I'm going to go with someone that we haven't seen the NFL level yet, and that is actually Xavier Worthy, who did do a lot of punt returns at Texas. I'll admit I didn't look into it too much until a brief 10 minutes before this, but just thinking of the profile of Worthy himself, very quick, shifty guy. He's he's very undersized, and that you may worry about putting him into those high contact situations. But I think with his skill set, with the way we've seen Andy Reid kind of introduce the younger wide receivers in through kickoff returns, punt returns, it almost feels to me like Chiefs are getting there, like the version of Kadarius Toney that they really wanted. I can see a lot of similar schemed up touches, not just in actual scrimmage, but in these kind of situations. So I really like Worthy, and if you can get ahead of predicting who surprise punt returners, that may be a good way to target these guys who are slipping down far below where they should go with the return yard boost. So Worthy's my guy for Choose Your Fighter this week. You'll have to let us know in the chat who you guys think, or if you have a different suggestion for Scott Fishbowl. Do want to give a quick shout out to Jamie, the man of the hour, of course. Glad you could join us for your team breakdown. Before we get into that, we're gonna go with a little topics just to get us in the mood of thinking about how to build up a contender, a team that made it to the finals last year. I want to talk about how redraft season, point scoring season kind of feeds into your thinking in the dynasty game. So Chu, how do maybe redraft rankings, or we kind of talked about the underdog lines and such our last show, but how do redraft rankings and redraft in particular influence your dynasty game?
I think the biggest thing I like to focus on, especially if I'm a contender, but honestly, even if I'm somewhere that's kind of in the middle where it's like, I'm not a bona fide contender, but I think I can make a push into the playoffs. And once you're in the playoffs, anything's possible. I do like to look for those buy low opportunities on those guys that are a little bit older. I think once we get past rookie drafts, which for the most part we are, I know we're looking at Jamie's team. They haven't had theirs yet. I do have one dynasty team that I have not had the rookie draft yet, but for the most part, we're past it. And I mean, rookie fever is not stopping. You actually now have these people on your teams, and now you're just feverishly watching all these camps to watch for news, watch for, some slow-mo video of somebody making a toe tap catch, like all the nonsense, and any reason to sell or buy somebody. And while everyone's focused on that, you can focus on, hey, Mike Evans has been doing pretty well for the entirety of his career. Hey, I know people don't like Stephon Diggs because now he's gone to a different team and he's apparently behind Nico Collins, but he's still Stephon Diggs, like Amari Cooper, Tony Pollard, Raheem Mostert, like enough of these older guys where it's like they're not far removed from playing well, even if it was as early as last season. And just because they're not 20, 21, 22, it doesn't mean that their career is over. And it could only mean that you get the final 1 or 2 seasons of their higher end production. But when you're able to get it at a discount, oftentimes it is worth it. So it's worth kicking the tires on some of those deals for some of those older players that some people may just think it's not worth it. He's basically done.
Yeah. And especially when your team is in that kind of competing window, it's almost just like you have to consider the monetary value that you are going to get to potentially by adding that kind of player. So kind of piggybacking off Chu's point, Jerry, who are some buy lows you've been thinking about on your contenders
for a redraft team?
For a dynasty team.
Oh, for dynasty. Okay. I don't know if you'd really consider this too much of a buy low, but we might have brought him up before a couple episodes ago, but I've been talking a lot in other group chats about Cooper Kupp a lot. He's because obviously you got the new Puka Nacua there. Everybody's all into him. He's top 5, top 10 for dynasty wide receivers right now. But like we got Stafford is going to be back fully healthy. There's all the talk about how they want to run the ball a little bit more, but now that there's Kyron Williams news out there. But Cooper Kupp is probably my number one buy low, if you could get a low, because he seems to just be pushed off to the side because of Puka, and they drafted Blake Corum, and Kyron Williams came on strong, and it just seems like I think there's a lot of value still left there. I think there's a lot left in the tank for him, and he's best friends with Stafford, so I'd like to grab him for a year or two if I could.
Yeah, I really love that call. Like, are we? Yeah, we saw what Puka did, but that's also in a season that Cooper Kupp was had a lot of injury trouble. Maybe was never truly fully healthy. They have beefed with the offensive line too, so I really like that call. And we are almost taking him at his floor. Age is a consideration, but it's probably his floor of, say, redraft value when he's going like low end wide receiver 2. What about you, Chu? What's a dynasty contender buy low that you've been looking at?
So all of those ones I already said, I definitely would stick with that. Another wide receiver, I don't think I mentioned Deontay Johnson, although I might have mentioned him. And I didn't get to tight end, so let me go ahead and sprinkle those in there. So 3 guys who, again, they won't cost you much. And in terms of production, some either maybe haven't produced previously because of lack of opportunity, or they have produced, but they're a bit older. So Colby Parkinson, Jonnu Smith, and Hunter Henry are all guys where they're on that absolute fringe of, if you don't have, the Travis Kelce, the Mark Andrews, the George Kittle, the Sam Laporta, if you don't have those guys, I'm fine with just sprinkling in, like, let me get 2 or 3 guys where I feel like, let me get into the season and see who's getting the opportunity. Because getting them is not thinking, yes, I have Colby Parkinson, who I'm very much in on going into this year with Higbee having that late season injury. I know Higbee got the deal, but Parkinson also got paid a decent amount of money too. And certainly over a couple, Davis Allen and a couple of other tight ends already on the team. So I do think they're going to be heavily utilized. I think Ben Skoranek, I want to say, was traded away from the Rams.
Right.
So I do think that Parkinson's going to have a decent opportunity there, especially in that type of offense versus what they were doing in Seattle. Jonnu Smith, everybody hates Jonnu Smith, but you love him if he's on your team. Hunter Henry has just been a steady guy. And I mean, I'm a Jalen Polk fan, but who else is going to catch passes in New England? So
yeah. We've talked about Colby Parkinson before on the show, and I actually went and added him in. I actually didn't know that much, but I also didn't realize he was 25. Just kind of the way, the feel that everyone has over Will Dissly and Parkinson, or sniping my Noah Fant. It just kind of makes him seem like that old, boring guy. But he's totally just 25, top 20 in tight end money. But I really also do like the Hunter Henry shout, which is one that maybe I overlooked a little bit. But if you look at the tight ends that are finishing maybe top 12, top 8, they're generally top 2 targets on their team. And can we say for sure that Hunter Henry isn't going to be a top 2, maybe top 3 target as one who's been there? I mean, Demario Douglas is the only other that's really, been there from last year when you think of Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. I know Kendrick Bourne is still on the team and got a contract extension, but did tear his ACL, which knocked him out of the rest of the season. But Parkinson is great because Jamie actually sent me a note before the show this week saying that was on one of his ad lists too. So glad you brought that up. I am just going to offer my humble Zeke Elliott as my contender buy low, and he's actually just a spot below a 2025 mid-third in KTC. Take that as you will. I don't know. You'll have to send the offers out, but it's probably still in a rookie draft season. Maybe one for Jamie to consider in his draft is if you can get him for that maybe a mid-third value. I just think there's a lot of profit to be had by solving the Cowboys running back room, especially at the prices you can. Especially when the bookmakers are still pricing the Cowboys as a top 5 to top 10 offense. Like, someone has to score those points. Tony Pollard was still the RB14, even though he was drafted as a much, someone who expected to finish a lot higher. But that's even with him being pretty horrendous near the goal line. So Zeke could fall into a few touchdowns. Doesn't really need to do too much. Maybe catch a few passes as he's going to be there for pass protection. low end RB2, maybe 11 points per game, and you're paying a lot less than that kind of value. So Zeke is, I think, one of the buy lows I have in mind. But with that said, let's get right into Jamie's team. Unfortunately, one that lost in the championship. So we're here for you, Jamie, to help you take that next step. This is a 12-team super flex with 11 starters. Before I get into the team, we were just chatting about this. I want to get into the scoring settings because, I mean, personally, I haven't played in one with these kind of rules really. Jerry, you want to just walk me through some of these scoring settings that caught your eye, how you'd approach like this kind of league, and maybe whether if a position or two is boosted in value because of these rules.
Well, obviously, quarterbacks have a little bit of a bump there too, but having the other positions have a little bits of bonuses, it helps you with not needing to go crazy with quarterbacks, especially being in a super flex where people normally would go crazy with quarterbacks. Getting points for attempting to rush the ball, getting points for a first down. So like even on like a 3rd and 1, you're getting that partial point for rushing the ball, and then you're getting half a point for getting the first down. And so a guy like Derrick Henry is getting a lot of points for 20 rushes in a game, and maybe 6 of them going for first downs, and then obviously your touchdowns and stuff like that. But I think the bonus is definitely it evens out more the wide receivers and the running backs. And is there a tight end one too?
Tight end. So it's a half PPR league, but tight end gets an extra 1 point. So 1.5.
Yeah, so I mean, it definitely helps even it out. Even though, like I said, even though the quarterbacks also get bonuses, getting those long bomb touchdowns and actually getting points for completions, I believe it said, it does help with making decisions on skill positions too.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. And just quick note to JV in particular, do let us know if you have any notes as we're discussing this, of course. But I mean, with one like this, maybe having played in the league, you'll know something that we might not be, as familiar with. So please do jump in the chat whenever. But turning it over to you, Chu, let's start going through this team. And, in my brief streaming career, I've realized I'm pretty bad at screen share logistics. But yeah, like I said, 12 team, 11 starters, super flex. So Chu, why don't you take me through some key players that catch your eye here?
Well, I mean, just for starters, it being 12 teams, start 11, it is pretty deep in terms of, looking at Jamie's team here. I can definitely see how he made it that far, considering how big this league is and how deep it is. Certainly, starting with Mahomes, this being a 6-point passing touchdown league, you cannot go wrong there. I can see how Justin Fields and Ryan Tannehill were good at one point. I do think Justin Fields could certainly, regain a starting position. Tannehill, probably not likely, but I really, really do like his running back room. Breece Hall, ETN, even Jerome Ford this year. I mean, I know there's been a lot of question marks with Nick Chubb and what's that room going to look like. Deonta Foreman going in there. Nyheim Hines, that we mentioned, who might be more of a returner than anything. But, I mean, there's plenty of depth guys. I still believe Chuba Hubbard has a place in Carolina's backfield. I know you got Roschon and Herbert in that Bears backfield. I mean, going over to the receivers, I do like that it's a mix of the older and the younger, with no one really being too old, I would say. I mean, with it being DK Metcalf and Godwin and Cooper, I think are good, stable guys. Addison, we'll see. I'm not a JJ McCarthy believer, but we'll see how that goes, and I'll leave it at there. Josh Palmer, he's sneaky good, and considering what that room is looking like going into this year, I really like his possibilities. And I know we did mention it's the tight end premium, so Dalton Schultz, again, I know they added Stephon Diggs. I know they got Joe Mixon now. So, I mean, there's plenty of weapons for CJ Stroud to throw it to. But I do think Schultz still has a pretty firm spot in this offense. So, I mean, look at the deal they just gave him. And Tucker Kraft, who I do think is a very nice – I know he's dealing with some injuries right now. But if he can just get healthy, which I know we've said that for however many NFL players at this point, if he can just get and stay healthy, I do think he and Musgrave can be a deadly 1-2 combo. It'll be tricky to try and figure out which week who is getting the work. But, if you need to plug him in certain weeks, I think you have a decent upside there. And I mean, with Dulcich and Bellinger, I think those are nice kind of dart throws. If does Bellinger actually become the starter, and for Dulcich, kind of the same question. But I mean, I do think I'm a big believer buying into Dulcich this offseason. I think people he's one of those guys I think people actually forgot is still playing football. Like it seems so long ago that he actually was doing anything productive,
Mhm.
but it wasn't that long ago. And I know it was kind of a flash in the pan, but I think if you give him the opportunity in that kind of offense, Sean Payton's going to utilize him well if he's healthy.
What you said, if they could just stay healthy, and who have we not said that about? I think Greg Dulcich fits that to a T.
Yep.
And I just read, maybe it was today or yesterday, that he's picked up another injury that's going to keep him out for most of the, I guess, this month. And we'll see when he comes back. But just someone, unfortunately, just can't stay healthy with a multitude of soft tissue issues. But there is a talented player there. There's a lot of opportunity. So, I mean, I'm pretty invested in Greg Dulcich, so I would love to see that one. But just going back over this team, there are a lot of key pieces. Jerry, this team is built around Mahomes and Breece Hall, but not a lot of other cornerstone, like clear, like this guy's gonna be on my team for 3+ years. I don't know. What's your immediate thought? Like, where do you want to go with this team, considering like the roster?
Honestly, I'd just be looking at trying to upgrade depth. It's a team that could win. Yeah, I mean, he said he lost the championship by 3 points. It's a team that could be right back in the championship again this year. He definitely needs another quarterback, I would think. And I know we just talked about all the bonuses and stuff, but like, you still want a second quarterback, at least one that's going to be on the field for a majority of the year. I'm not seeing one of those guys yet, unless Justin Fields happens to take the starting job. But I mean, even if that's not until halfway through the season, you're still missing 8 or so weeks without a second starting quarterback. So I would target that first more than anything.
Mhm.
But outside of that, I mean, overall, it's one of the stronger teams I think we've touched on. I think it's one of the stronger teams that I've seen. There's some dead weight on there that we're going to talk about potentially cutting, but I would start with the quarterback, and I would start with maybe getting a. I mean, I was looking at the running backs, and it is strong up front with Breece Hall and Travis Etienne. But then when I went to the bench, I was like, all right, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be a Jamie team without Roshan Johnson.
Of course not.
Having Jerome Ford, so it's like it's not as much of a need as I originally looked at. But I would still try to look at another running back, even if it's an older gentleman, just to play at a flex or plug in for a bye week or something.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with most of those points there. Yeah, Jamie just mentioned he has his cut list. We'll get to that a little bit later, but just want to touch on maybe the more key pieces. But I like the point you made about the running backs. I think, at least for the start of the season, Jamie could probably piece together the running back 3 on this team, a flex player between Chuba Hubbard and Jerome Ford, especially. Chuba Hubbard, we just, perhaps as expected, got news that Jonathan Brooks is still taking some time to recover from the ACL. We expected a slow start, but now it's maybe been more confirmed because how these players get steamed up from time to time. But him and Jerome Ford, again, Chubb really not running yet. I think he started jogging, but no more than that. Still recovery. So I think those are 2 players that, especially early on, will be depth pieces that will, maybe let Jamie take some time before strategizing. Chu, do you kind of see the same approach of going for depth with this team?
Yeah, I think another quarterback would be tremendous. I think if you're going to make a kind of a bigger swing to say get another quarterback, I mean, with the rookie draft coming up, of course, I know your pick is the 111, and I don't know the level of appeal and liquidity of that. Yes, Jamie, I'm so glad you just said that. I would recommend Bo Nix. I mean, you could very well wait till that pick comes up. The people I was actually thinking of in that range were, I mean, if it's him or Lad McConkey or Brooks, if he's still there, maybe. But I would say Nix, first of all. I think Nix is tremendously underrated. Not necessarily, I mean, talent-wise, I think he can kind of be in the mix with a lot of these guys, but I think just his opportunity right now, I don't see how he can't be a very middle of the road fantasy quarterback, which I think he would immediately step in as your second quarterback on this team, obviously because he's going to be starting. But I think that would be a great way to not affect your current depth while adding a starting quarterback, which is obviously the proverbial cheat code in superflex leagues. But in case you were looking for maybe a more aggressive move, it was good if it was going to be pairing that 111 with, if you'd be okay with parting with him, like Addison in the first and getting a top 10 quarterback, if that's possible. I don't know how stingy your league is with dealing quarterbacks. Some are just, no, the starting price is 2 first plus and that's it. So
yeah. I like both. I like the second suggestion a little bit more. I'm actually going to push back a little bit on a Knicks selection at the 111.
You're nixing it?
Damn. Oh, wow. I wish I came up with that one. But my thinking is, I think Knicks is what, 111, maybe 110, like in that range, he's definitely in play, not just in this league, not just with this team, in really all Superflex formats. He should be the pick around 111. I'm just personally not a fan of, especially trying to fill a QB2 slot with Knicks or use the 111 to, get like the QB, let's say QB 24, honestly, maybe generously considering the, obviously Sean Payton's there, but just the weapons room is maybe a bottom 5 unit in the league. Like, I just don't have too much faith in Knicks being a productive fantasy starter, to where I would probably rather try and move back from the 111 to, and maybe my value is going to be all off because of the 11 starter league. I usually play in a little more shallow league. So we'll have to see how a 2-for-1 deal goes. But can you trade back from the 111 to 206, 204 to 206, like a Benson to Pearsall Leggett range, maybe even a little bit later, and then add a Stafford to the mix, maybe a Geno Smith? I think you're going to get very similar production for the 1 to 2 years, while also kind of solving this, the depth issue that we're bringing up. I think Knicks at the 111 is perfect value. I just think that value could be used a little bit better. Is my personal take on that. But that's a good segue into the rookie draft picks. Jamie, of course, finishing with the 11th spot. Had all of his original picks a 111 down. Jerry, how are you kind of approaching this rookie draft with that in mind? And of course, maybe I'm going to be outnumbered 2-1 on a Knicks selection there, but how are you approaching this rookie draft?
Sorry, I was muted. Knicks is definitely in play. He's an option there. I mean, and you mentioned trading down, which is also an option, but with a team like this and picking this late into the first round, I would even be on board for just moving just 111 for one of those mid-tier QB2s or one that we know is going to be a starter. Like you mentioned, dropping down and picking up a running back and Stafford. Why not just move 111 for Stafford? I mean, I would do something like that. It might not be the best.
If you could trade back and add Stafford.
Yeah, that's true. Like that's definitely the way. That's obviously the way to go. But like if you're without risking not getting that quarterback, or if you're like, because I wouldn't want Geno Smith. So I would do somebody like a Stafford. I would try to maybe look into. I don't think I would trade 111 for Russ, but maybe get Russ, and that way you could kind of have both the Pittsburgh quarterbacks and never miss a beat there if one gets hurt or one gets benched or whatever.
I love that idea. Yeah.
I would definitely be looking in that direction. Jamie brought up you got it on there, 111 for Young. I mean, I would do that too. I would do something like that. Get a nice young quarterback, and he's going to be there for another 3-4 years, hopefully a contract extension. So I would do something like that too.
Yeah, I think Young. We didn't talk about contender. We talked about contender buy lows, but Young is one of my favorite buy lows just in general in Dynasty. And even a team like this that got to the finals is really going for it. And yeah, I really like the point you made, Jerry, about Russell Wilson. maybe I was off on the Matt Stafford value. 111 actually might be the going price. He does have a lot more shine to it. Russell Wilson has all the stench on him, right? And that might be more the way to go for that 2-for-1 scheme to get a second piece you really want, because Russ's value is depressed. And I mean, the perfect part about that idea is like combining that Wilson and Fields core to guarantee you have one QB. All right, chef's kiss with that move, Jerry there. Let's move down well, actually, I do want to touch on perfectly back to Chu, because he had a suggestion there of 111 and Addison. What do you think about this trade?
100%, I would do that.
Yeah.
Murray, he's one of those that I've probably spoken about it. I don't know how many times, but he's in the perfect window where people keep dogging him, like, oh, is he healthy? We've seen him in the Cliff Kingsbury offense, but like seeing him in like a full season of this offense, what's it going to look like? It's going to be great. Look at him. Look at what you saw out of him last season, which was a partial season. And now he will have better weapons, just an overall better team around him. I know they're still doing a lot to rebuild that defense and everything, but this is just an overall better team. They have a lot of work to do. I'm not saying that they don't need, a lot more talent on most phases of that team, but I believe in that coach. I think he's has their ear, and they're kind of moving forward with him. And I think having the best rookie receiver in this class, let alone in a couple of classes around the last couple of years, Michael Wilson, I do think isn't a slouch necessarily. I'm not as big of a believer as most people, but if he doesn't have to be the guy, I think he can do well. Greg Dortch, who doesn't love Greg Dortch? Trey McBride. I mean, I know they got the weapon in Benson. You already have James Conner. It's a good team around him, and I think that you're going to be reminded why Kyler Murray got paid the deal he did. And I think Addison, unfortunately, he's in a poor situation where, if someone's going to be force fit in Minnesota, it's not going to be Jordan Addison.
Yeah. we know, Jerry, you are the smartest here. But I mean, I completely agree with you there, Chu. And only to say, I don't think you can get Murray for 111 and Addison.
But try that.
Yeah, you could definitely try. So to kind of just stick on that point, I want to go to Jerry and kind of work down that list a little bit. How about, let's say, Dak? Would you trade the 111 and Addison for Dak Prescott on this team for Jerry, or for just? I'm all over the place, Jamie.
Yeah, no, I would take the Murray trade. I would take a Dak trade. His
Brock Purdy.
I would take a Purdy trade. I would take a Hurts trade. I would take
Hurts. Okay, we can't get that far. How about Tua? I want to go kind of that range of Dak down.
I would take a Tua trade. I mentioned, well, Jamie mentioned it, and I just verified it, like taking 111 or trading 111 for Young. So after the season that Young had last year, it didn't look too good. O-line didn't look that good. You're basically, I think, a pulse that's going to be on the field for 17 games, I think, is a good piece for that 111. So I would take Tua. I would take almost any guaranteed starting quarterback for that pick that we don't think is going to get benched. Like now, if it was for Russ Wilson and he didn't have Justin Fields, that would be where I would cut it off and say, no, I don't want to do that, because we're looking at the same situation that we're looking at with Justin Fields, just opposite, where he might get benched. So if you're looking at did Cardinals go out and get anybody, or is Clayton Tune still the backup? Do you know?
They got Desmond. Didn't they get Desmond?
Yeah, Ritter.
Yeah, Ritter too. So because another
thing. Well, they
like,
have him. They didn't get him. That makes it sound nice.
He was put on the roster, but something like getting Murray and then just sending a 4th or 5th round pick for Tune if he's not already if he's not a waiver or something, just grab something like that and just have that backup there just in case if you're worried about Murray getting hurt.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm probably leaning on the tier upside. I'll explore that first, because I actually think my value of the 111 is probably a little higher than like the Stafford or any QB with a pulse tier. I know you didn't mean that as literally as it sounds, but I just think and Jamie's doing this after the rookie like hype has really died down from the peak, but still, I think the 111 on the clock, that's a really enticing pick. Not just with the Knicks that you could pedal to another QB needy team, but the ones we listed earlier, McConkey, Worthy, Brooks, whoever. There's going to be a team that really wants to trade into that asset. So make sure to use that to your advantage if you're dealing this pick, Jamie. So let's move down to the second round. And I mean, did you just include Sanat there just to make sure that, you're not 100% rostered? But 211, either Roman Wilson or Sanat. Chu, any other avenues, or how do you think? How are you approaching this pick?
I'm okay with either one. If Jermaine Burton's available, it's been a little while since I've actually done a rookie draft now, it feels like, so I'm trying to think of the last one I did. I'm okay with either of those. I definitely understand, in this type of league, if you're able to get Sanat this late, don't think that's a bad deal at all. Certainly because I know you don't need to be flush with tight ends, but it certainly helps to have a little bit of depth there. And I think Sanat, I know they did bring Zach Ertz into Washington, but Sanat is the clear heir apparent, and I think Zach Ertz is being brought in for the Cliff Kingsbury comfort, and Zach Ertz is all but out of this league in the next year and a half. I won't even give it 2.
Yeah. If your guy Roman Wilson is there, though, I feel like you just have to get it with what we've kind of been hearing from Jamie around the Twitter sphere. But what else are we thinking with this team? I kind of just want to go back to the wide receiver core because there are a lot of names there, but maybe the absence of that young flashy stud for me is kind of taking away the shine from a lot of very capable players, a lot of very capable point scorers. But Jerry, would you be trying at all to tier up into like a Chris Olave tier of player, if not higher?
I mean, if it doesn't cost too much, yeah. But I'm fine with like the weapons that I got here, just adding depth to it. 211, I'd probably be looking at maybe one of the rookie running backs that are in the area, either like a I just had the list here. Hang on a second.
Like a Marshawn Lloyd.
Well, no, not Lloyd. I'd be looking at Wright or Bucky Irving around that area if I could. Try to get some more running back depth. But outside of like upgrading the wide receivers, unless something falls into my lap, I'm happy with this room. That's assuming I'm not doing that Kyler Murray trade because I'd be losing Addison though. But I'm happy with how the room is right now with all the current wide receivers.
Got it. Yeah. Do you feel the same way, Chu, or would you be looking up in a wide receiver tier up specifically?
Yeah, I'm thinking kind of similarly because with this deep of a league, I think I'm in 2 12-team, not start 11, but 2 12-team leagues right now. And seeing a roster like this, it's kind of tough unless you play with a bunch of morons to have like enough. Kind of the pairing of I have the quarterback, I have if not 2 running backs, I have the receiver, because it's kind of a sneaky good pairing of you have Mahomes, you have Etienne and Hall, mostly Hall, but I do think Etienne, again, what he did last year, even if he does a lesser version of it, it's still going to be certainly fantasy worthy. And from a wide receiver standpoint, I feel like so often DK is just forgotten about. Godwin, I know he's living in Mike Evans' shadow, but again, I think he's still a very capable receiver, certainly in this format when you need the depth. Amari Cooper, I think he's slept on a good bit. I feel like it's been years that they keep talking about, like, oh, he's this boom bust. He kind of appears and disappears. It's like, yes, and when he appears, he's going to drop a 30 burger on you and you're going to win. So I feel like if you can make an improvement that doesn't cost too much, which is, again, what's been said already, please definitely do that. But I think you don't need to do anything too crazy, because I feel like how the team is situated currently is good, but you can definitely make improvements and tweaks to it to kind of get yourself set for another playoff run and ideally a championship run.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sounds like at least it's a pretty shrewd group of Morans or morons in the league. But actually, thank y'all for talking me through it. But actually, because actually looking at just the top 3 wide receivers listed here, it's all guys that I have beating their at least redraft ADP for a variety of reasons. DK we've talked about on the show. Mainly, I'm really enthused by the offensive coordinator coming in there. I think that it's just a perfect match for DK's skill set. Godwin, there's been a lot of chatter that he's going to be moving back into the slot more, which is where he's done his best work, at least for fantasy. He quietly had, and I have to look at the exact number, but he actually had quite a lot of targets and catches last year. He just didn't get the touchdowns, which, as we know, is not very sticky from year to year. And then Amari Cooper, I think, one of the best buy lows for a contender. Luckily, he's already here on your team. But even if you look at the splits between any other Browns quarterback and Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper is still one of the most productive receivers in fantasy. So maybe I was wrong in my initial thought there. But just, I guess, to challenge the idea, and this is what none of us really would like to do. Jerry, is there any piece of you looking at this team and being like, is it time to start selling some of these old pieces? Am I really in the best positioned place? Are you thinking that at all?
No, I mean, like I said, it's good enough to win for another year or 2, even 3 years. It's got a lot of young pieces. Addison's going to get his quarterback figured out, I believe. Metcalf is he's still semi-young. Godwin could still hold it down. So it's I'd just be looking to upgrade and compete. I mean, the dynasty is all about trying to build a team that competes for years, but at the end of the day, you also want to win that year. And I think that this is a team that could win that year. If all goes south and we're at the trade deadline and he's 1-7, I still wouldn't have a fire sale, but I would definitely maybe look at my options. But then again, these guys are going to be the same guys that are probably on the team next year. And if all goes south and he's 1-7 and something just horrible went wrong, and I'm not really looking at selling now with this team.
Now I think as a team, at least Jamie can be pretty flexible with. Just to touch on maybe the later picks, we'll go to some of our favorite sleepers. I do want to tie in a question that I had on the doc about and talked about earlier, the redraft buzz. In particular, the 3rd round, maybe he's going far past the 311 at this point, but Kimani Vidal is a very hot name on Twitter, a very hot name on Underdog. I think he's going as like the RB 50 already in Underdog. Just today, we heard that Gus Edwards has an injury that's going to keep him out for some time, and this hype is just going to build on Kimani Vidal. So I guess, Chu, I have 2 questions for you. One, with that kind of buzz that comes in for these players, are you generally trying to move them on and capitalize on that value, or case by case? I don't know, but maybe Vidal in particular. I don't know. I'm kind of poorly worded question, but are you trying to capitalize on this kind of buzz by moving players off your team?
So this would be the reason why going into most rookie drafts, I know every team's not built the same. You can't always control this, but I do like to, get a couple of those, if I'm in the 2nd at certain points or 3rds, trade back and get a couple lotto tickets, basically, where I can pick up someone like a Vidal or a Tyrone Tracy, someone I'm pretty high on this offseason, Jalen McMillan. So some of these guys where there's enough that I like about them, whether it be their talent, whether it be their situation, whether it be just how they're being covered in terms of being hyped up to make me believe that I could possibly flip them before they even play it down in the NFL. I do consider it's kind of a case-by-case basis, though, because for some of these guys, for even the ones that, I like, it's my guy or whatever, the rule on my dynasty teams are, I'm convinced that if this was real life, these people would not even get apartments to figure out, to put their stuff down. These people would just be carrying their suitcases around to games and to the locker room and stuff. No one is safe on any of my teams. And outside of true cornerstone people, it's really tough to glob on to be oh, this 3rd round guy, he's going to be the next this, or this 4th round guy, he's going to be the next this. It's like, most likely they're not. But
Mhm.
if you're able to capitalize and say, hey, I spent like the 307 on this obscure running back through injuries and that sort of thing, it looks like he might get a shot. Someone's going to send me like a future, call it 2/3 or like thirds, like successive thirds in like the next 2 years or something like that. It's like, okay, that's probably a good bet because realistically he could have a good week or two, but otherwise I'd rather take 2 lotto tickets I can scratch later on. So it's a case by case basis, but ultimately it's kind of just playing the odds.
Yeah, no, I think perfectly said there. I mean, even with like the kind of hype that Vidal has and is going to build in the next couple of days, I wouldn't be shocked if he moves for like a 25-second in some leagues, as people just try to like beat the crowd there. But coming back to Jerry and just going with these last pick, let's go a few of your favorite sleepers in the late favorite picks in the late 3rd, 4th range in the 2024 class.
Just not even league specific or setting specific, but
Mm-hmm.
a couple that were mentioned. Well, one of them that was mentioned was Tyrone Tracy from the Giants, and also from the Giants, I like Theo Johnson with the Darren Waller news. Although Bellinger's there,
He has Bellinger on this team, actually.
yeah. And I'm not really too worried about like handcuffing your tight end or whatever, but I think Theo Johnson definitely has a shot, an outside shot to make him definitely make an impact in the Giants roster, even if it's not year one. So he's more of a taxi stash. Is there a taxi spot on here?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he's
4-man
more of a
taxi.
taxi stash. Eric All, another one, a guy that's tied to Joe Burrow. Definitely, I like that. And obviously with Theo Johnson and Eric All, these are guys. If it's a tight end premium league, they boost up a little bit. Might not boost up in the rookie draft, but definitely boost up a little bit for value in 2-3 years down the line. They might be good guys.
Yeah, I completely agree there, and I love this one by Jamie. 411 Cade Stover. Please get Cade Stover. Buy now. Invest low. This guy is going to go play with his CJ Stroud being his college quarterback. He's going to go sit for 2 years behind Dalton Schultz. They have an out on his contract for save $11.5 million after 2 years. Stash him on your taxi and then be ready to profit in 2026 with Cade Stover. Please do try and get him there. What about you two? Later sleepers in this rookie class that you'd like to target on this team?
So a couple we've already mentioned, so I won't repeat those, but I mean, Audric Estime is one. I do think he's going to be able to carve out a spot on this team. I think it might just be Dynasty Twitter having so much talk lately about that Javonte Williams is a Julian McLaughlin.
Right.
I'm not saying Audric Estime is going to, unseat both of these guys, but I do believe he's going to find a suitable role in this team. And if Javonte Williams, they were to move on from him or kind of phase him out a bit, which I don't think they should. I do think he's a good heir apparent to eat some of that work. And another one who I do like, and I think you could get him at the ass end of any draft, is Rasheen Ali in Baltimore. I understand Derrick Henry's there. I do think Justice Hill, I think they've been pretty steadfast in what they think about him and how they want to continue to have him have a substantial role. But I think Rasheen Ali he complements Henry well, and he does, a bit of what Justice Hill does too, but I think he does it better. And I do think if he gains the trust of the coaching staff, I do think he could eat into more of what Justice Hill's work is. And there's apparently a curse of Baltimore running backs just getting hurt all the time. So hopefully Rasheen Ali, if that were to happen, hopefully it doesn't, but Rasheen Ali could step in and he could get a couple of bye week fill-ins. That guy that when you're looking back on seasons, like, holy shit, Rasheen Ali got double-digit fantasy points in weeks, 15, 16, whatever.
Right.
It's that weird story where it's like it's a fact that you never remember unless it's within that year. So couldn't hurt to add a guy in the 5th or something.
Yeah, I think perfect. I mean, Dylan Lobby, honestly, probably will go ahead of the 411. Yep. 311, that's a tough one because there's still a lot of players I like there, but Dylan Lobby is like a perfect candidate for this. I think Will Shipley is another one that I'm targeting just because he plays for the Eagles, right? And that's a high scoring offense. These are kind of like running back, I guess, bets you want to make which team is going to score the most points, right? That's a good comment from Jamie, just to show. Walk away with Knicks, Roman, Vidal. Oh, Vidal would be great. 311. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty good haul to add to this team. I would think, it's almost weird to see a team with a pure list of draft picks just his own at those spots. I'm sure maybe there'll be some moves around in your draft, but start 11. This class is so deep. I think you really could stick and make these picks and add a lot of valuable players to the team. Just a couple of notes from Jamie. That a couple of players on his roster. He's thinking about dropping for draft picks. Justin Ross, Tyler Scott, Brendan Strange, Tyler Huntley. Any objections, Jerry? Any of those names being cut?
No, I'm definitely looking at those. Even Mike White, I think you mentioned him. Mike White is definitely there. But so what happens if he drops the guy, he gets a comp pick for it?
No, I think just to make space for his draft picks.
So basically just like picking up guys after the draft.
I think dropping to make space for these four picks.
Why'd you say that? Yeah, no, there's those guys for sure. Just looking over the taxi too. I'd probably hold on to those taxi guys for another year. If you got to activate them, and throw the rookies into the taxi. But I think I would still hold on to those guys.
Kyle Trask can go for sure.
Yeah, definitely Trask, and then might have to make a decision on CEH too. Who knows what's going on there?
Ooh, CEH. At least with the way that depth chart looks right now, why not keep the Chiefs' potential backup running back as bad as he's been over the last couple of years. Chu, he's gone on to a few veteran ideas that he had. Colby Parkinson did make this list. He's also planning to pick up Drew Lock. Well, Drew Lock and Colby Parkinson are the guys he's thinking of picking up. Drew Lock, honestly, one that I had in mind for the episode. We talked about these roster bubble players, and maybe a part of me, our waiver run hadn't happened yet. I didn't want it to get out. But I think why Drew Lock kind of appeals to me is Daniel Jones, right? Is he the long-term quarterback? I don't know. I'd probably put my money on no, but he kind of has a Russell Wilson-like situation where if he's injured, I think at June 1st or March 15th or whenever the league season turns over, the Giants owe another $23 million. So we could see a situation where he's benched a little later in the year to allow Drew Lock to come in. Drew Lock to come in close to your trade deadline, close to fantasy playoffs, and you can either get some value. So I like the Drew Lock idea there. From our last episode, any veterans that we kind of talked about that time or other ones in your mind, Shu, that you think would be good adds to this team? Of course, we don't have the free agents in front of us, but let's think about our garbage list.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing in thinking about. Yeah, the tight ends would be the main things. I mean, you can always get veteran dart thrower tight ends that are probably free agents. I definitely understand the Drew Lock one. He's someone who I added in a number of leagues earlier on, going into the offseason with some of those at lock. But I do think that it's Daniel Jones's job and the injury. Yeah. Well, and I mean, Drew Lock it's a 1-year deal for him. He's 28, 29, I want to say. I can't believe he's already that old. But I mean, again, he's an arm for hire. So I mean, if he plays the season out or is on this team and doesn't play at all, then he'll possibly sign another deal, go elsewhere. But I can't really think of anybody else veteran wise because I mean, you've got a couple of dart throws at running back. I do think CEH with McKinnon not coming back, Pacheco has carved out a very clear role in leading that backfield, but CEH is going to have a couple of infuriating weeks where he just vultures up a couple of touchdowns. That's for sure. Right. But you won't be able to know when those are going to happen. So best of luck on that. But yeah, again, you don't need to overdo anything with this team. I think you're in a very good position. Mm-hmm. Like you set out when you had a couple of different scenarios of what the first, second, and third is going to look like for your picks. It could be that. It could be you pair the first with Addison. You could just do the first and send it out for somebody else. You have a number of things you can do that don't blow up your team and can improve it for today, tomorrow, and the next day. So just don't overthink it. Just go win.
Yeah, I think very well said and very well summed up there, Chu. Just to add my last 2 cents to potential veteran pickups, something that I'm really thinking of as like a new dynasty meta is going after backup quarterbacks, considering especially the number of injuries we saw last year, and there are all these statistics about how many quarterbacks actually like make a start in the NFL, how many quarterbacks actually have like top 12 fantasy weeks. That's another cheap way to maybe address the quarterback problem on this team. Yeah, yes, go for some of the names we talked about. Even go for the cheapest name in Russell Wilson, get that Wilson Fields pairing. But some names that are on my mind is, of course, Flacco. We saw what he did last year, but especially playing in the Colts, playing behind Anthony Richardson, playing with Shane Steichen, I really like the potential there. I like Josh Dobbs with his rushing upside, and now back up at the Niners. Great weapons group. Jimmy Garoppolo is now the backup at the Rams. Again, just a great offense to be a part of. There are a number of names like this. I'm sure I have a tweet somewhere. Tyrod Taylor, he showed us quiet rushing upside last year.
Carson Wentz in Kansas City.
Yeah, yeah, right. And now they have some decent guys too. But yeah, there are so many like creative ways that you could solve this problem for cheap. And I think also just wide receiver, have to always plug my guy, Greg Dortch, but also DeMarcus Robinson. Just a little, maybe, I guess there's 6 wide receivers in his lineup right now. We could always use another guy in there. Jameis Winston, yeah, Mike White, but Jameis Winston, perfect candidate. The way we saw them let Flacco air it out and how Jameis Winston has been, I think that's just a perfect call there. Jamie, hope you enjoy that episode. We certainly enjoyed breaking it down. Do let us know either chat or anywhere always if you have any other questions with this team. We'd be more than happy to help you out there. Chu, glad always great time breaking it down with you. Tell the people where they can find you.
You can follow me on Twitter at Father Dynasty. Check out the tweets there. Check out, the YouTube is a bit sparse at this time of year, but going to pick it back up closer to the season. But yeah, definitely glad to be catching up with you guys, and looking forward to more episodes. We've got plenty of off season left, so don't sleep on us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And how about you, Jerry? Where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter also at JerryWilkie FM. And we got a lot of weeks left for the off season. Got a lot more episodes going on. We're gonna take this show into the season too, I believe. So we're here forever.
We're here forever. The fantasy assessment. But yeah, please, yeah, do keep us updated on how this rookie draft goes. My name is Rahul. You can find me on Twitter, the new Twitter at SmallTalkFF. Just started a channel of my own, been posting videos, really pushing those clips out there. But thank you all for the support. It really does mean a lot to me. And as I was telling these guys before, it is a lot of work. Mass respect to everyone out there putting content out, because I kind of now really feel the inner workings of that. But check me out on Twitter, and just, yeah, I guess mainly Twitter, hanging around, but also on YouTube and all your other social content. But this has been the Fantasy Assessment. We will catch you. We're here every other Thursday, so we'll catch you in 2 weeks. See y'all.